Welcome back, everyone. Today's video is over hydration, and there are several different out-of-the-box ways that you can hydrate yourself. Several fancy water bottles and foods, which is our favorite way to help hydrate. But Dr. Ben's going to share some of the science behind it.
All right, that old wives' tale, you need to eat or drink 8 glasses of water a day or half your body weight in kilograms of ounces of water a day. I mean, that's better than probably not hydrating at all, but that's really not the best way to hydrate. If you, again, look back ancestrally at cultures and traditions hundreds of years ago, people were eating more hydrating foods. So we like to say, eat your water around here. And actually, I got that from Gina Bria, who wrote this great book called Quench, and I highly recommend it. And she talks about that. She studied a lot of native cultures. There was one tribe down in South America that were famous for running these marathons, 50 miles a day. And the way they did it was with chia seed, which we have in this jar here. Chia seed will soak up water, kind of like a sponge. And so when you eat that, that water will slowly release in your gut into the body. As opposed to just chugging a glass of water, it's kind of like rainwater on a field that's been plowed and it just runs off, versus a field that's no-till. No-till fields tend to soak up water like a sponge. So you'll have more runoff when you're just guzzling water as opposed to having water that has chia seed in it, or just eating foods that are hydrating like iceberg lettuce. I used to thumb my nose at iceberg lettuce because there's like zero nutritional value to it, but there is a lot of water. But really any raw vegetable, cucumbers, tomatoes, especially local vine ripened, they're going to be much more hydrating. So you want to remember to eat your water. So if you're going to go eat a piece of pizza or something, some processed food, which I don't really recommend, but even healthier versions of pizza, it's a dehydrating food. So you want to eat an apple with it, or drink a chia seed water, have chia seed pudding for dessert, and there's cool recipes for chia seed pudding. But you want to think about eating your water and eating foods that are hydrating. That's number one. Number two, our environments tend to dehydrate us. So even if you're not sweating all day, if you're in indoor environments, indoor air conditioning and heat in particular, it's going to dehydrate you. So it's easy to get dehydrated as Americans. And when you want to hydrate, let's talk about just drinking water. People always ask me, what's the best water? And there's kind of good, better, and best. So most municipalities, their tap water is dirty. And I don't mean dirty with bacteria, I mean dirty with pharmaceuticals. So water gets treated, but they don't remove Prozac and a lot of these antipsychotics, antidepressants, birth control pills, those are estrogens. So we're getting overexposure to estrogens and other pharmaceuticals in the water, not to mention chlorine and fluoride in some municipalities, and those are not beneficial for your health. So straight tap water, usually you want to steer clear of. A lot of bottled water really is just tap water. So try to not do that if you can. Filtered water would be your next step up. RO is probably the most aggressive filtration system, and that's really clean, but it also takes out the good stuff, the minerals. So you basically have just super clean water, but it needs to be remineralized. So filtered and then remineralized is probably your next step up. But then third from there is structured water, and that's a new term probably for most people. Gina Bria talks about it in her book, and then Dr. Gerald Pollack, University of Washington, he's a professor there, and he discovered this fourth phase of water called structured water. So we all know about liquid, solid, and vapor, but there's this in-between state, and he called it the fourth state. And the way he discovered this, was he punctured a cardiac cell accidentally that he was studying under the microscope, and when he punctured the cell membrane, the water didn't just squirt out like you would expect, like a water balloon. The cell maintained its structure, so he poked some more holes in it, and the cell still maintained its structure. So he started studying this internal water inside a cell, and it turns out it's more like Jell-O. So that's what structured water is, and it's a spectrum. It'll start to structure even when you put chia seed into a glass of water. It'll start the structuring process. When you put salt, this is a packet of real salt, and you want real salt, meaning all the trace minerals. You don't want table salt, where it's just sodium chloride and a little bit of processed iodine. So Celtic sea salt, Himalayan sea salt, real salt, these are good examples. But when you put that in your water, even a pinch of that, it'll start to structure the water. There are some water bottles like this one. I'm going to unscrew the bottom here. And these are different rocks, certain stones and gems. They emit, this is going to sound crazy, but they emit a frequency. And actually all things do. This table emits a frequency. This book emits a frequency. Chia seed emit a frequency. Nicole and I emit frequencies. Everything does. So these frequencies are kind of like a fingerprint. Everyone's unique and individual. And the frequencies coming off some of these rocks will start to work with the energetics of that water molecule to structure it. Now, this is getting more into quantum physics, so it might be a little out there for some of you, but all water found in nature is structured. So rainwater, water coming up out of a spring, water going down a river, I should say all water that's in motion in nature. Water that's just stagnant, sitting there, it destructures. And think of structuring as energy. When water is structured, it's energized. So you want those charged particles, you want energized, charged water going into you. When you juice, so when you put a cucumber and lettuce and kale and lemon through a juicer and get a glass of fresh squeezed juice, that's structured. The water in a vegetable is structured. So when you can consume water that way, it's going to hydrate you better. It's going to wash out the inside of your cell. Think of it as a detoxification. The last thing I'm going to say about water, though, half of water is movement, actually. When you eat and drink water, you need to irrigate your entire body. And the way to irrigate the body is through the fascia. The fascia is this kind of spiderwebby-like material that's from the top of your skull all the way to your toes. And it's this intricate network of fibrous material. And the water travels through that. And that water comes through the fascia, kind of like a soaker hose. Real quick story, there was a hand surgeon, famous hand surgeon in France, was doing a arthroscopic surgery, so that's a little tiny camera he was using in the hand of this patient, and he couldn't really see anything because everything was red tinged from the blood, so he had his nurse put a tourniquet on the upper arm, cut the blood supply off temporarily, so the blood moved out. And then he was the first one to ever see this. He could see the fascia was glistening, kind of like a soaker hose, where all those tiny little water droplets are coming out of it. And that's when we discovered that it's the fascia that's hydrating, irrigating all your cells down to your little fingertips. But the fascia hydrate better when it gets contracted and twisted and movement. When you're exercising, when you're squatting, twisting, turning, just little stretches. That was kind of like wringing a towel. You're going to wring that fascia and it's going to hydrate better. So don't be in a seated position all day long. Get up every hour and just stand up. Do a squat. Walk to the water cooler. Walk around the block. Do whatever you can, even for 2 minutes, 5 minutes. That movement's going to hydrate you better. So you want to drink hydrating fluids that are structured. You want to eat your water, eat hydrating foods, and you want to move around to hydrate. And a good measure of if you're hydrated is your urine color. If you're real bright yellow, you're dehydrated. If your urine looks more like water, more clear, you're hydrated. So use that as a judge. That'll change day to day and season to season, depending on your stress level and your sweat level and all kinds of things. So that's kind of a good rule of thumb. Eat half your water, move every hour, and just watch the color of your urine. It's kind of how I do it.
So you shared a little bit about the water bottle and how it structures the water. We also have funnels here. So can you describe how the water is actually structured?
Right, so there's different ways to structure your water. There's a handheld funnel. You just pour water into the top and it vortexes. So there's these an apparatus inside this handheld funnel that causes the water to vortex. It adds energy. It energizes the water. You can get an under the sink unit that does the same thing. There's one that filters and remineralizes and then vortexes it. So you have tap water coming out of your sink that's structured and clean. There are whole house units. You can actually structure all the water going to the whole house. Livestock, your pets and your livestock that are being watered, same thing. And out here in West Texas, we're starting to see some farmers now put these structuring devices on their pivot irrigation systems. Even they're starting to collect some data showing decreased need for watering of those crops because this water's more hydrating and you get better yields in the crops. That's new data coming out, so we'll have more about that in the future. But there's lots of devices. TheWellnessEnterprise.com is a good website. TheHydrationFoundation.org is another good website. I'm sure we'll have more resources in the future too. But these are some examples of a way to hydrate. And the biggest, probably for a beginner, I would say, quit drinking sugar. That's your number one thing for hydration is stop this liquid sugar. Liquid sugar get your insulin level to spike so much, your blood sugar and your insulin level go up. That drives inflammation. So quit the liquid sugar. Obviously that's soda, but even your fruit juices. So you think you're doing healthy by switching to juice, and you're not. You're not doing yourself a favor at all. Orange juice, grape juice, apple juice, anything pretty much in the aisle of a store, it's sugar, if it doesn't say just water. I do like the different flavored carbonated waters. So there's Perrier that has different flavors, or San Pellegrino, Topo Chico. There's some carbonated drinks. You can put some stevia drops in there, different flavors, even orange or whatever. There's lots of different flavors. So you can
Essential oils.
mix it up, and there's maybe some other practical things Nicole knows.
Yeah, well, I like to use essential oils, but really, even just practically speaking, I'm more likely to drink water out of a cute water bottle than just a plain old
It's all
cup.
about looks around here.
So you guys have a great day.